Ambassador Zethkar stared at the tactical display with growing despair. Red warning symbols covered nearly half of the Volanti star system, each one representing another fallen defensive position. The crimson tide of enemy ships pushed deeper into their space with every passing hour. "How many more worlds have gone silent?" he asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. Defense Coordinator Ireland's 4 arms moved frantically across her control panels. 3 more colonies in the Outer Rim, Kaleth Prime, Nuvara Station, and the mining world Zirion. We estimate 40 million civilians were on those worlds when communication ceased. The massive alien creature known as a Devourer appeared on the main screen, its biomechanical hull stretched for kilometers, covered in writhing tendrils and pulsing with sickly yellow light. Behind it, dozens of smaller ships swarmed like parasites around a dying host. The Devourers had appeared from the dark space between galaxies 3 months ago, consuming everything in their path. Planets, stations, entire fleets. Nothing could stop them. "Sir, we're receiving another distress signal from the refugee fleet," Communications Officer Telmorin reported. "They're requesting immediate escort to the inner colonies." Zethkar nodded grimly. The Volanti Stellar Republic had been one of the major powers in this sector for over 2,000 years. Their fleets had maintained peace across dozens of systems. Now they were reduced to evacuating civilians while their military crumbled before an enemy they barely understood. "Order the 3rd and 7th fleets to provide cover for the evacuation ships," he commanded. "Pull them back from the Nexus defense line." "Sir, that will leave the approach to Volanti Prime completely undefended," Ireland protested. "If the Devourers break through..." "If we don't save those refugees, it won't matter if Volanti Prime survives," Zethkar replied. "We've already lost too many civilians to those monsters." The bridge fell silent except for the constant stream of damage reports and casualty figures. The Volanti had always prided themselves on their advanced technology and tactical prowess. Their ships were elegant, efficient designs that had won countless battles through superior engineering and strategy. But none of that mattered against the Devourers. The enemy seemed immune to conventional weapons, their biomechanical hulls regenerating damage faster than the Volanti could inflict it. "Ambassador," Telmarine called out, "we're receiving responses to our diplomatic appeals for assistance." Zethkar's spirits lifted slightly. The Volanti had sent distress calls to every allied species in their sector. Surely someone would answer their plea for help. "What news do you have?" "The Altarian Confederacy sends their regrets. They report that their fleets are already engaged defending their own borders. The Devourers have attacked their outer colonies as well." "What about the Nexus Coalition?" "Similar response, sir. They're offering to accept refugees, but cannot spare military assets." One by one, Telmoran read the responses from their former allies. Every major power in the region was under attack or too frightened to commit their forces. The Devourers seemed to be striking everywhere at once, forcing each civilization to fight alone. "There is one more response, Ambassador," Telmoran said hesitantly. "From the humans." Zethkar paused. The humans were a relatively new species on the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 300 years ago. Most established civilizations considered them primitive and aggressive, though a few diplomatic contacts had been maintained. The Volanti had signed a minor trade agreement with something called the United Earth Federation decades ago, but there had been little interaction since then. "What do the humans say?" "The message is unusual, sir. It simply reads, 'Assistance en route, maintain positions. Humanity stands with the Volanti.' There's a timestamp indicating their fleet departed 36 hours ago." Several officers on the bridge made sounds of confusion or disdain. 36 hours was barely enough time for a message to cross the distance between Earth and Volanti space, much less for ships to make the journey. The humans clearly didn't understand the scale of space travel involved. "How large is their response fleet?" Irulan asked. "We should coordinate with whatever ships they can spare." Telmorine's eyes widened as he studied the data. "According to this manifest, they're sending one ship?" "No, that can't be right." He rechecked the communication. "Sir, the humans report they are sending one vessel, designation UEF Yorktown." A few officers actually laughed out loud. The idea that any single ship could make a difference against the Devourer swarm was absurd. Zethkar felt a mix of gratitude for the gesture and pity for the humans' naive understanding of the situation. One ship would be destroyed in seconds. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Thank the humans for their offer of assistance, but advise them that a single vessel would not be sufficient. Request they maintain a safe distance to avoid unnecessary casualties." "Transmission sent, Ambassador." No immediate reply from the human vessel. The next 12 hours brought nothing but bad news. The 7th Fleet had been completely destroyed while covering the refugee evacuation. Only half the civilian ships had escaped to the inner colonies. The 3rd Fleet was down to 30% strength and falling back rapidly. Most disturbing of all, long-range sensors detected a massive Devourer formation moving directly toward Volanti Prime. "Time to arrival of the main enemy force?" Zethkar asked. 18 hours at current velocity," Irulan reported. "We have perhaps 6 hours before our remaining defensive fleets are overrun." The ambassador stared at the tactical display showing their hopeless situation. Red enemy markers outnumbered their remaining blue fleet indicators by more than 4 to 1. Even if they committed every ship in the system, including the orbital defense platforms, they couldn't hope to stop what was coming. "Sir!" Telmorin's voice cracked with excitement. "I'm detecting new ships entering the system. Long-range sensors show—" "Wait, this can't be accurate." "Report properly, officer," Irulan snapped. "Ma'am, sensors indicate multiple large vessels emerging from hyperspace at coordinates 77 Mark IV. Estimated count—" Telmorin paused, triple-checking his readings. "Over 800 ships, various classes. They're broadcasting human identification codes." The bridge fell completely silent. 800 ships was larger than the entire Volanti Navy at full strength. There was no way the humans could field such a massive force. They were barely a spacefaring species compared to the established galactic powers. "Verify those readings immediately," Zethkar commanded. "Check for sensor malfunction or enemy deception." Multiple officers worked frantically at their stations. After several minutes, they all came to the same impossible conclusion. Hundreds of human ships were indeed entering Volanti space. The lead vessel identified itself as the UEF Yorktown, just as the original message had indicated. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "On screen." The view screen flickered to life, showing a human male in what appeared to be a dark blue military uniform. His face was stern but confident, and something in his eyes suggested he had seen countless battles. Behind him, the bridge of his ship hummed with activity as dozens of crew members worked at stations covered in lights and displays. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earth Federation Fleet. Ambassador Zethkar, I presume?" "Yes. Admiral Chen, we are grateful for your response to our distress call, though I must admit we are surprised by the size of your fleet. Our intelligence reports indicated humanity possessed a much smaller naval force." Admiral Chen's expression grew grim. "Ambassador, when the Volanti Stellar Republic calls for help, Earth answers. The Devourers represent a threat to all sentient life in this galaxy. We cannot allow them to consume any more worlds. Admiral, while we appreciate your commitment, you should understand the enemy you face. The Devourers have destroyed fleets 3 times larger than what you've brought. Their biomechanical hulls regenerate damage, and their weapons can drain the life force from entire planets. We're aware of the threat assessment, Ambassador, Our deep space monitoring stations tracked the Devourer advance for weeks before your distress call arrived. We've had time to prepare. Zethkar felt a chill run through him. If the humans had been watching the Devourer advance, they had seen the complete destruction of multiple star systems. They had witnessed the total annihilation of civilizations that had stood for millennia, and yet they had still come to help a species they barely knew. Admiral, our remaining fleet strength is minimal. We can coordinate with your forces, but I fear even combined we lack the firepower to stop the main Devourer swarm. Ambassador, with respect, you won't need to coordinate with us. My orders are to eliminate the Devourer threat in Volanti space completely. Your fleets should pull back and focus on search and rescue operations. Leave the fighting to us. Several Volanti officers exchanged shocked glances. The human admiral was essentially telling them to stand down while his forces handled an enemy that had devastated their entire military. It seemed like either incredible arrogance or genuine confidence in human capabilities. Admiral, I must protest. This is our space, our people under threat. The Volanti military will not hide while others fight for our survival. Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, I understand your position, but trust me when I say that the safest place for your people right now is as far from the coming battle as possible. We'll handle the Devourers. That's what we came here to do. Before Zethkar could respond, Irulan called out urgently from her station. Sir, long-range sensors detect the main Devourer swarm advancing faster than predicted. They'll reach the outer defensive perimeter in 4 hours. How many ships in their formation? Admiral Chen asked. Over 2,000 vessels of various sizes, including 12 of their largest class bioships. Each of those massive creatures is over 15 kilometers long. Admiral Chen turned to someone off-screen and spoke in rapid human language. When he turned back, his expression was deadly serious. Ambassador, I'm going to ask you one more time to pull your forces back. What happens next is going to be unlike anything you've seen before. The Devourers made one critical mistake when they decided to attack Volanti space. What mistake was that, Admiral? They threatened species under Earth's protection, and when you threaten humanity's friends... Admiral Chen paused, and for just a moment, Zethkar saw something predatory flash in the human's eyes. We respond with overwhelming force. The transmission ended, leaving the Volanti bridge in stunned silence. Through the main viewports, they could see distant lights moving against the star field, hundreds of human ships taking up positions throughout the system. Each vessel was larger than traditional Volanti designs, with angular hulls covered in weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. Sir, Telmorin reported quietly, I'm detecting energy readings from the human fleet that don't match any known technology in our databases. Their power output is significant. Zethkar stared out at the approaching salvation his people neither expected nor understood. Humanity had crossed the galaxy to answer their call for help. But instead of the small support force they had anticipated, the humans had brought an armada. The question that haunted him now was simple. What exactly had the Devourers awakened when they threatened human allies? He suspected they were all about to find out. The Devourer swarm emerged from hyperspace like a plague of living nightmares. Thousands of biomechanical ships pulsed with sickly yellow light as they moved in perfect formation toward Volanti Prime. At the center of the formation, 12 massive bioships stretched across space like ancient gods of destruction, each one capable of consuming an entire world. Ambassador Zethkar watched from the bridge of the evacuation command ship as his people's doom approached. The human fleet had taken position between the Devourers and Volanti Prime, but even 800 ships seemed pathetically small against the massive alien swarm. Human vessels are holding position at Grid 7 Alpha, reported Communications Officer Telmorin. They're not moving to intercept the enemy advance. Perhaps they're reconsidering, Defense Coordinator Irulan suggested. Facing that many devourers would be suicide for any fleet. Zethkar studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The human ships remained perfectly motionless in space, arranged in what appeared to be a defensive formation. Every military instinct told him they should be advancing to meet the enemy before the devourers could close distance and use their devastating short-range bioweapons. "Sir, receiving transmission from Admiral Chen. Put him through." The human admiral appeared on screen, still wearing that same expression of calm confidence. Behind him, his bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements precise and deliberate. "Ambassador, I wanted to give you fair warning. In approximately 30 seconds, we're going to engage the Devourer fleet. I strongly recommend you move your observation vessels to a safer distance. Admiral, shouldn't you be advancing to meet them? They're still 4 light minutes away from your position." Admiral Chen smiled, and there was something unsettling about that expression. "Ambassador, humans learned long ago that the best way to kill monsters is from very, very far away. Please move your ships back." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at empty space. 4 light minutes was well beyond the effective range of any weapon system he knew about. Even Volanti plasma cannons, the most advanced energy weapons in their fleet, were useless beyond half that distance. "Move us back to Grid 9 Beta," he ordered reluctantly. "Maximum sensor range, but maintain safe distance." As their ship pulled back, the tactical display updated to show the Devourer swarm continuing its inexorable advance. The bioships at the center of the formation began to glow brighter, their organic hulls rippling with energy as they prepared for battle. Smaller Devourer vessels spread out in attack formations, ready to overwhelm the human fleet through sheer numbers. Detecting massive power buildup from human vessels, sensor operator Crixan reported. "Energy readings are off the scale. I've never seen anything like this." "What kind of weapons are they charging?" Zethkar asked. "Unknown, sir." "The energy signatures don't match any known technology in our databases. It's almost like they're building miniature stars inside their ships." Suddenly, space itself seemed to catch fire. Brilliant lances of coherent energy erupted from the human fleet, crossing the 4 light minutes to the Devourer swarm in mere seconds. Each beam was brighter than a sun, and there were hundreds of them. The entire human fleet had opened fire simultaneously with weapons that defied everything the Volanti knew about physics and warfare. The first salvo struck the Devourer formation with devastating effect. Bioships that had withstood the combined firepower of entire alien fleets simply ceased to exist, vaporized by energy beams that burned through their regenerating hulls like acid through paper. Explosions bloomed across the enemy formation as dozens of ships were destroyed in the first few seconds of engagement. "By the ancestors," Irulan whispered. "What are those weapons?" "Sir, I'm reading massive gravimetric distortions from the human beam weapons," Crixan reported, his voice shaking. "They appear to be firing controlled streams of stellar plasma contained in artificial gravity fields. Each shot has the destructive power of a small star." Zethkar stared in horror and amazement as the human fleet continued its devastating barrage. The weapons fired in perfect synchronization, each beam precisely targeted to inflict maximum damage on the Devourer formation. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for months were being obliterated faster than the sensors could track, but the Devourers were not defenseless. The surviving ships began to return fire, launching clouds of biomissiles and energy projectiles toward the human fleet. The organic weapons moved through space like living things, adjusting course to target individual human vessels. Then something even more impossible happened. A shimmering barrier of energy appeared around the entire human fleet. The Devourer weapons struck the barrier and simply disappeared, absorbed harmlessly into what looked like ripples in space itself. Not a single human ship took any damage. "Defensive shield technology," Zethkar breathed. "But the power requirements for something that large would be..." Impossible, Irulan finished. The energy needed to project a fleet-wide barrier of that magnitude would require the entire output of a star. Sir, Telmarin called out, Admiral Chen is transmitting again. The human admiral appeared on screen, looking completely calm despite the cosmic-scale battle raging around his fleet. Ambassador, I wanted to update you on our progress. We've neutralized approximately 40% of the enemy force. The remaining Devourers are attempting to close distance, but they won't reach us. Admiral, how is this possible? Your weapons, your defenses, this technology is centuries beyond anything we've encountered. Ambassador, I should probably explain something about human military doctrine. When we discovered that hostile alien forces were consuming entire civilizations, Earth's government made a very simple decision. If we were going to venture into a galaxy full of monsters, we needed to be the biggest monsters of all. On the tactical display, the human fleet began to advance toward the surviving Devourers. As they moved, more weapon systems came online. Massive railguns launched projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, each one striking with the force of an asteroid impact. Missile tubes opened to release swarms of intelligent torpedoes that tracked individual enemy ships with relentless precision. But the most terrifying sight was when the larger human ships began to reveal their secondary armaments. Weapon ports opened along their hulls to expose massive cannons that looked like they belonged on planetary defense platforms rather than starships. When these guns fired, they didn't shoot energy beams or missiles. They fired compressed gravity waves that twisted space itself, crushing Devourer bioships like insects in an invisible fist. Those are gravity weapons, Crixan reported in a stunned voice. They're using artificial black holes as ammunition. The Devourer fleet, which had swept aside every defense in its path for months, was being systematically annihilated. The massive bioships at the center of their formation tried to retreat, but the human torpedoes tracked them down one by one. Each explosion lit up space like a dying star as creatures the size of cities were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Sir, I'm receiving a wideband transmission from the surviving Devourers, Telmorin reported. They're trying to surrender. This was unprecedented. The Devourers had never shown any signs of intelligence or communication beyond their predatory instincts. They had never retreated, never negotiated, never shown anything but mindless hunger for destruction. Put it through, Zethkar ordered. The transmission was filled with static and strange organic sounds, but gradually resolved into something resembling language. The voice that emerged was layered and alien, like multiple creatures speaking in unison. Unknown species, we acknowledge your superiority. We withdraw from this territory. No further conflict desired. Admiral Chen's response came immediately, broadcast on all frequencies. Negative. You have consumed entire civilizations in this sector. Withdrawal is not acceptable. Surrender is not acceptable. You have 30 seconds to prepare for total elimination. We offer knowledge of consumed worlds, locations of other swarms, valuable information in exchange for survival. 15 seconds. Zethkar watched in fascination as the human admiral negotiated with humanity's most dangerous enemy. The Devourers were offering unprecedented intelligence about their operations, data that could save countless lives across the galaxy. Surely the humans would accept such valuable information. Time's up, Admiral Chen said simply. The human fleet opened fire again, this time with even more devastating weapons. Reality itself seemed to tear apart as dimensional cannons fired exotic matter that deleted portions of space-time. The remaining Devourer ships simply stopped existing, erased from the universe as if they had never been born. Within minutes, the entire Devourer swarm was gone. 2,000 ships that had brought terror to dozens of star systems had been completely eliminated by a human fleet that remained virtually untouched. The only evidence of the massive battle was the expanding debris field and the slowly fading energy signatures of destroyed bioships. "Admiral," Zethkar transmitted, his voice barely steady, "the battle is over. You have achieved total victory. But why didn't you accept the Devourer's offer of information? That intelligence could have saved countless lives." Admiral Chen's expression grew cold. "Ambassador, humanity doesn't negotiate with genocidal monsters. The Devourers have consumed billions of sentient beings. Justice doesn't require information. It requires elimination. But the knowledge they offered will be recovered from their destroyed ships. Human science teams are already analyzing the debris field. We'll learn everything we need to know about their operations without allowing a single one of them to escape and continue their killing." Zethkar realized he was seeing something that chilled him to his core. The humans hadn't just brought overwhelming force to protect the Volanti. They had brought the cold, methodical determination to completely eradicate an enemy that threatened innocent life. There would be no mercy, no negotiation, no half measures. "Sir," Crixan reported quietly, "I'm detecting additional energy signatures from the human fleet. They're charging different weapon systems." "Additional targets?" Zethkar asked. "No, sir. Long-range sensors show they're targeting the Devourer staging areas in the Dead Zone Nebula. Ships that weren't part of this attack force." Admiral Chen confirmed this with his next transmission. "Ambassador, our sensor arrays have identified 17 Devourer outposts within a 50 light-year radius. We'll be eliminating all of them before we return to Earth. We want to make absolutely certain that no Devourer forces remain in this sector." "Admiral, that will take weeks, possibly months of travel between systems." "Negative, Ambassador. We'll complete the operation within 72 hours. Before Zethkar could ask how such a timeline was possible, space around the human fleet began to shimmer. Massive portals of twisted space-time opened near each human vessel, revealing glimpses of distant star systems beyond. "Portable wormhole generators," Admiral Chen explained casually. "We can deploy anywhere in the galaxy within minutes. Distance is no longer a limiting factor for human military operations." As the human ships began moving through their artificial wormholes, Admiral Chen sent one final transmission. "Ambassador, Volanti space is secure. You can begin reconstruction operations immediately. If you encounter any further threats, don't hesitate to contact Earth. We'll respond appropriately." The portals closed, leaving the Volanti fleet alone in their home system. Where hours before there had been an unstoppable alien swarm threatening their civilization, now there was only empty space and the gradual return of hope. Zethkar stared at the tactical display, trying to comprehend what he had witnessed. The humans hadn't just answered their call for help. They had demonstrated military capabilities that made every other spacefaring civilization look like children playing with toys. The question that haunted him now was even more disturbing than before. If this was what humanity considered an appropriate response to threats against their allies, what would they do to actual enemies? He suspected the galaxy was about to find out. 3 months after the Battle of Volanti Prime, Ambassador Zethkar stood in the rebuilt council chambers, staring out at a view that would have been impossible just days before. Where once the sky had been filled with the smoke of burning cities and the sickly glow of Devourer bioships, now it showed the clean blue atmosphere of a world at peace. The reconstruction had proceeded at an unprecedented pace. Human engineering teams had arrived within hours of the battle's conclusion, bringing with them technology that could rebuild entire cities in weeks rather than years. Atmospheric processors cleaned the poisoned air of worlds the Devourers had partially consumed. Medical teams treated survivors with techniques that seemed more like miracles than medicine. But it wasn't the speed of the reconstruction that amazed Zethkar. It was the fact that the humans had refused any payment for their assistance. "Ambassador," his aide Telmoren announced, "the Galactic Council representatives are ready for your briefing." Zethkar nodded and activated the holographic conference system. Representatives from dozens of species appeared around the circular chamber, their faces displaying various expressions of curiosity, fear, and concern. The emergency session had been called to discuss the human question: what to do about a species that had just demonstrated military capabilities beyond anything in recorded galactic history. Chancellor Mordak of the Altarian Confederacy was the first to speak. "Ambassador Zethkar, your report regarding human military intervention has caused considerable alarm throughout the galaxy. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." "Honored Chancellor, I can only tell you what I witnessed. The human fleet eliminated over 2,000 Devourer vessels in approximately 30 minutes. They used weapons and defensive systems that our scientists cannot begin to explain, and they did it all to protect a species they had minimal contact with." "But surely you're exaggerating," protested Minister Vexera of the Centauri Coalition. "No single fleet could destroy that many Devourers. Our combined forces barely managed to slow them down." Zethkar activated the holographic playback of the battle. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as human weapons tore through the Devourer swarm like fire through paper. Several delegates made sounds of disbelief when the footage showed the gravity weapons crushing bioships with invisible force. "This is impossible," whispered Director Thane of the Hegemony. "Where did the humans develop such technology? They've been spacefaring for less than 3 centuries. "That's what troubles us all," Chancellor Mordak replied. "If humans possess this level of military capability, why haven't they used it to expand their territory? Why haven't they conquered neighboring systems like every other species did when they achieved technological superiority?" Zethkar had spent months pondering the same questions. "Honored delegates, I believe the answer lies in something Admiral Chen told me after the battle. I was granted permission to visit Earth's embassy ship to express our gratitude for their assistance." The memory was still vivid in his mind. The human embassy vessel was unlike anything in the Volanti databases. A kilometer-long ship that seemed to blend artistic beauty with practical functionality. Admiral Chen had received him in a conference room with transparent walls that looked out into space, where construction ships worked to repair damage from the battle. "Ambassador," Admiral Chen had said, "you seem troubled by our response to your situation." "I am grateful beyond words, Admiral, but I must admit I'm struggling to understand your people's motivations. You crossed the galaxy to fight for strangers, refused payment for reconstruction assistance, and demonstrated technology that could have conquered half the galaxy. Why?" Admiral Chen had been quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars. "Ambassador, let me tell you something about human history. For thousands of years, our species fought constant wars. We conquered, enslaved, and destroyed each other over resources, territory, and ideology. We came very close to wiping ourselves out completely. What changed? We realized that the universe is a dark and dangerous place, filled with things that want to consume or destroy all intelligent life. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest predator. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves." Zethkar had felt something shift in his understanding of humanity at that moment. "You see yourselves as protectors rather than conquerors." Exactly. When we achieved faster-than-light travel and discovered other intelligent species, we made a choice. We could become galactic conquerors like so many civilizations before us, or we could become guardians. We chose to be guardians. But the power you demonstrated. Surely it would be easier to simply take what you need from other worlds. Admiral Chen had smiled at that. "Ambassador, do you know why human weapons are so devastating? It's not because we're naturally violent, it's because we understand exactly how precious life is, and we're willing to do anything to protect it. Every weapon on our ships exists for one purpose: to eliminate threats to innocent beings as quickly and completely as possible. Now, as Zethkar shared this conversation with the Galactic Council, he watched the representatives struggle to process this information. Most galactic civilizations had gone through phases of aggressive expansion when they first achieved space travel. The idea of a species that chose protection over conquest was almost unprecedented. You're saying the humans developed this overwhelming military capability specifically to defend others? Asked Chancellor Mordak. That appears to be correct, but there's more you need to understand. After our conversation, Admiral Chen showed me something he called the Sentinel Protocol. Zethkar activated another holographic display, this one showing a map of known space with thousands of tiny markers scattered throughout. Each of these markers represents a human observation post. They've been monitoring galactic civilization for over a century, watching for exactly the kind of threat the Devourers represented. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just responded to the Volantes' distress call. They had been watching over the entire galaxy, ready to intervene whenever innocent lives were threatened. "How many observation posts are there?" Director Thane asked in a hollow voice. "Over 50,000 according to Admiral Chen. They have early warning systems positioned around every inhabited world in the galaxy, including all of your home systems." The conference chamber erupted in shocked exclamations and demands for more information. Several representatives accused the humans of espionage, while others worried about the implications of being under constant surveillance. Minister Vex Ara's voice cut through the chaos. "Ambassador, are you telling us that Earth has been watching all of us without our knowledge or permission?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. But consider this. When the Devourers attacked Centauri space last year, who do you think disabled their scouts before they could report back to the main swarm? When the Rigel pirates tried to raid hegemony shipping lanes, who made their ships mysteriously malfunction in deep space? When the plague outbreak threatened to spread from Kepler 442b to neighboring systems, who provided the medical knowledge that led to a cure? The chamber fell silent as the representatives realized the implications. Dozens of incidents over the past century suddenly made sense. Threats that had appeared and then mysteriously vanished. Pirates who disappeared without trace. Plagues that were cured with unprecedented speed. All of it had been human intervention, hidden and unacknowledged. "They've been protecting us all along," Chancellor Mordak whispered, "without us even knowing. Admiral Chen explained it as their sacred duty. He said that once a species achieves the capability to protect innocent life on a galactic scale, they have a moral obligation to do so. Humanity chose to accept that obligation." Director Thane leaned forward, his expression troubled. "But what about their own interests? Surely they expect something in return for this protection?" Zethkar had asked the same question. Admiral Chen's answer had been both simple and profound. "Ambassador, the survival and prosperity of intelligent life throughout the galaxy is in humanity's interest. We don't want tribute or territory. We want to live in a universe where children of all species can grow up safely. The humans see galactic civilization itself as worth protecting," Zethkar explained to the Council. "They're not interested in ruling over other species. They want to ensure that every species has the chance to develop and thrive without fear of extinction-level threats." "And if we refuse their protection?" Minister Vexara asked. "What if we demand they remove their observation posts from our space?" Admiral Chen was very clear about that. They will respect the sovereignty of any species that requests their withdrawal, but they also made it clear that such species would be on their own if existential threats emerged. The weight of this choice settled over the assembled representatives. Accept the protection of a species with godlike military power or face the dark galaxy alone with only their own limited defenses. Chancellor Mordak spoke for them all. What do the humans want from us in return for their continued protection? Zethkar smiled for the first time since the conference began. They want exactly what they asked for in their original trade agreement: friendship. They want to share knowledge, culture, and exploration with other species. They want partners in building a better galaxy, not subjects to rule over. And if we choose to become their enemies instead? Director Thane asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Everyone in the chamber had seen the footage of what human weapons did to the Devourers, the complete and utter elimination of an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for months. Admiral Chen was asked a similar question by one of our military leaders. Zethkar replied. His response was simple. We really hope that never becomes necessary. The conference continued for hours as representatives debated the implications of humanity's revelation. Some species chose immediate formal alliance, eager to cement their relationship with their powerful protectors. Others requested time to consider their options. A few declared their intention to remain neutral and rely on their own defenses. But as Zethkar watched the debates, he realized that the galaxy had already changed irreversibly. The age of small, isolated civilizations struggling alone against cosmic threats was over. Humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's guardians, and now everyone had to decide how to live in that new reality. Late that night, as the conference concluded and the representatives returned to their ships, Zethkar received a personal message from Admiral Chen. It was brief but meaningful. Ambassador, thank you for helping the Council understand our intentions. Earth looks forward to a long friendship with the Volanti people. Standing once again at his chamber window, looking out at stars that now seemed somehow safer and more welcoming, Zethkar composed his reply. Admiral, on behalf of the Volanti Stellar Republic and all free peoples of the galaxy, thank you for choosing to be guardians rather than conquerors. The universe is a brighter place because of humanity's choice. As he sent the message, Zethkar realized that his people had called for help and received something they never expected. Not just rescue from an immediate threat, but membership in a galactic community protected by species that understood the true value of life. The stars no longer seemed cold and distant. They seemed like home,